So this should be a really fun one. I got this tag on Twitter from Commander Savage. Thank you very much for the tag. It says, @HeroHey. Not sure if this interests you. Oh, it does. But seems the journos are calling out revolt against AAA slop, quote unquote, deprofessionalization. How pompous these AAA corpos and these AAA game devs are. Oh, gamers are refusing to buy AAA slop for a variety of completely justified reasons. This is just deprofessionalization. They just don't like professionals. Actually, you guys have been acting like anything but professionals. Take advantage of your positions, try and do like predatory monetization tactics, inject your own political rhetoric into games, and like get mad when gamers criticize that stuff and don't want to buy it. And that's just the tip of the iceberg with these people, as you guys know. But let's see what they say here on GameDeveloper.com, who, if you don't know, has been criticized in gaming circles multiple times before for trying to appeal to this side of AAA. For example, this headline they had in 2023 titled "DI is DOA. What's really failing inside the game industry is diversity efforts." At GDC, Game Developer Conference 2023, Anita Sarkeesian described why current DI initiatives at gaming companies are doomed to fail and how transformative justice might foster better healing, more equitable workplaces. GDC, Game Developer Conference, also what went viral last year for having a panel where game devs were literally screaming and seeming like a bunch of literal children, but not even just children, because not all children scream like that, you know, like throwing a fit sort of child. I don't know, man. It was really bizarre, but these are grown people who are supposed to be like working professionals. Let's pull up the really quick Asmon clip on that. We're not going to watch the whole thing, just like the first 10 seconds or so.
Let's see here. What the What's this?
Oh my
They
gosh.
stood outside and screamed in unison to complain about the state of the gaming industry.
He's
Watch
like,
a
no
bunch
way.
of game developers screaming in a public park to protest the state of the industry. Wait, so this is real?
Yeah, I've brought this up. Like, I talked about it then, and I brought it up multiple times since then, too. It never gets old talking about this thing. Oh, I'm blocking Asmon. My bad. I didn't even realize I'm still kind of new to this whole VTuber thing, guys. Please forgive me. Please forgive me, Asmon. Yeah.
No way, right?
No, they are, man. Okay, so that was a little more than 10 seconds, but it's too funny, man. That freaking thing is like, is iconic the word or infamous now? Whatever, you get the point. Okay, back to the article. Oh, I actually wanted to show you guys this too. The author of the article that we're going to take a look at in this video had also previously made an article back in January of this year saying it looks like someone at Activision is leaking Slack screenshots to right-wing X users. Far-right users of X, formerly Twitter, are singling out individual Activision Blizzard employees for comments made in support of DEI and inclusion at the company. Because anyone pointing out and commenting on the ridiculousness of this has to be far right, right? That's how these people are. Even if you're not political at all and you're simply commenting on something because it is ridiculous and absurd. And there's plenty of good reason to criticize these policies too. Not only do they negatively impact games, often like we've seen with Veilguard and Concord, despite how some people try and ignore that. And I'll always point out that yes, there were other issues with those games too, but DEI was certainly a factor. But these companies also use DEI as a disingenuous way of getting more venture capital and or ESG funding, things like that. It all comes down to money. And when you simply talk about that stuff and criticize it, yeah, they'll call you far right and all that other nonsense. Now, before we go to the article that's brand new that I want to take a look at with you guys today, sticking with the one that I just showed you, I actually got to take a look at this with you guys because it's just so unbelievable. Look at this nonsense. Once again, just a few months ago, they wrote, game developers have endured a resurgent right-wing harassment campaign lashing out over the depiction of underrepresented characters in games since early 2024. Around that time, content creators and Steam users in the far-right ecosystem began a campaign targeting work-for-hire game narrative studio Sweet Baby Inc., accusing it of attempting to impose a censorious agenda on its clients, including Insomniac Games, Remedy Entertainment, and Rocksteady. Some employees of these companies faced additional harassment after speaking up in support of their collaborators. Of course, they won't talk about what started all this to begin with, which was a harassment campaign against Cabrutus, right, and other gamers. Let's not mention that, or the very bigoted things some SPI employees have said. We're not going to talk about that either. In the wake of this campaign and other events, organizations like Take This and Games and Harassment Hotline assembled lists of resources for developers targeted by online harassment. Take This is something that I have discussed multiple times here on the channel as well. Hopefully you guys are familiar with that because they are an organization that to my recollection, essentially claims to be in support of mental health in gaming. Yet when you take a look at what they actually do, it doesn't seem like they really do much of anything to support mental health in gaming. And what they do quite often, as a matter of fact, is try and ask people for money, including the government, to which they have received, in my opinion, what I would deem significant amount of funding. And this just goes back to what I said before about these people being really disingenuous, even that much more funny, because these are the sort of people that often call people like you and me grifters. But then you see how they operate. And then we'll take a look at this paragraph where they mention Asmongold, of course. One such creator. Wait, so they're instantly implying Asmongold is like a right-wing or far-right creator, aren't they? If they're talking about like far-right stuff, and then they say like one such creator here, is that not the implication? My gosh, dude. One such creator was streamer and Mad Mushroom co-founder Asmongold, who repeatedly discussed the campaign in a number of 2024 videos, agreeing with the claims against SBI. Based? So Asmon's based, got it. Asmongold stepped down from Mad Mushroom and other businesses he co-founded under One True King, OTK, an influencer network he co-founded with a number of other streamers and YouTubers. This followed a series of anti-Muslim remarks during a Twitch stream that led him to being temporarily banned from the platform. Yes, let's try and character assassinate Asmongold here as we try to defend these corrupt corpos. That'll work out really well. It always does, right, guys? Then they go on. Oh, let's just read this part really quick, too. At GDC that year, online extremism researcher Dr. Rachel Cohort. I think that's one of the founders of Take This, actually. I think. Let me double check. Okay, so not a founder, but research director over there. And I think at some point she did step down. Not saying that's a fact. I don't recall how that played out entirely. But definitely was a research director there. And so they say, Dr. Rachel Cohort explained to game developer that this harassment was likely to continue if major companies like Sony, Remedy, etc. didn't publicly speak up against it. Oh my gosh, dude. The problem is that when leadership is not speaking up, it sets and reinforces cultural norms. In other words, trying to get major corporations to silence individual gamers from criticizing these things. How pathetic is that? These people have government funding, they have massive corporations backing them, and they want to try and use all that power to silence individual gamers. All right, all that now takes us over to the article that I initially only planned on covering today. I didn't plan on talking about all the other stuff. As a matter of fact, here's a little information on what happened. So I was recording like the part you're about to watch, and then about halfway through it, I thought to myself, you know, I should give people like more context on gamedeveloper.com and all this stuff. And so I started doing that. I didn't think it was going to take as long as it did. Hopefully you enjoyed this part of the video so far. Because yeah, that's how that played out. I went back and added that in. And you could say I like fell down the rabbit hole as I did that, I guess. But now we'll return to the article mentioned at the very beginning that I was sent, titled Deprofessionalization of Video Games. This being from just yesterday or the other day. So yeah, brand new stuff. Let's take a look. And I already skimmed through this a little bit already, so there are some highlighted areas to take an extra look at. But here they say at a glance. The success of Schedule 1, Repo, and Balatro has shown games by smaller solo teams can outperform expensive competitors. Some say this points to games requiring fewer developers to be successful, leading to deprofessionalization. Small teams deserve success, but deprofessionalization risks damaging the industry. This was easy to see at PAX East. I mean, their industry is a corrupt frickin' mess, so it sounds like a good thing if anything. At DICE and GDC this year, I heard talk of a trend in game development that sent a chill down my spine. Deprofessionalization, as A16Z marketing partner Ryan K. Rigney defines it. Deprofessionalization is a phenomenon driven by the overperformance of older titles, particularly free-to-play live service games. Large studios struggling to drive sales, and the outsized success of some solo developers and small teams. These three forces, he argues, will combine to drive career professionals from the traditional professionalized side of the games industry. Some of these people will decide to go indie, he continues. Others will leave gaming altogether. Oh no, guys, don't threaten us with a good time. Some of these corrupt corpos might leave gaming. This reminds me of when some of the Concord devs were like, gamers made fun of us so much. Some of us don't even ever want to be in gaming anymore at all. And everyone was just like cheering. And in between, there's a vast spectrum of irregular working arrangements available. Now, of course, throughout this article, he's going to paint like all these devs and all these AAA corpos as like innocent people who just want to work hard and all that. But we know that industry, as we've already discussed in plenty of other videos, is filled with a ton of corruption. And so, like, it's hard to feel bad for these people. Sure, there's probably like some good people caught up in this, which sucks. But largely, this industry has been growing way too much and getting way too inflated after the COVID boom. And even before that, they've been becoming like really predatory. They take advantage of gamers. When they get criticism, they get their journalist buddies to call us chuds and all that other sort of nonsense. So, as mentioned, hard to feel bad for y'all. Is this trend real? Continuing. It sure felt so at PAX East 2025. It's no secret that the COVID-19 pandemic led to many game companies decamping from expo floors, retreating to either all online promotion or in-person community meetups structured around intermittent panels. Gone are the days where a chunk of the development team can get one-on-one FaceTime with players. Shifts in supply and demand have simply moved where marketing takes place. But something else lurks under the surface. Some notable studios like Behavior Interactive and Funcom had classic booths up on the show floor. Devolver Digital had maybe the tallest booth on display, but it was only using it to showcase 3 games. Mycopunk, Monster Train 2, and Batsu. The bulk of the remaining space was taken up by small publishers and game studios. Wandering through these booths, I found a mix of truly excellent and inspiring games, but also found myself bubbling with frustration. Few of the developers on display were working on teams larger than 3 people. They talked about publishers wanting ever more expensive offerings as part of their pitch deck. Short-term contractors seemed to be the best way to plug gaps. Why did it feel like so few proper businesses were fighting to get their games in front of players at PAX? Speaking with Rigney and other developers, I sense that deprofessionalization isn't just a catchy phrase to describe demand-side economics in game industry hiring. It's a frustrating reality that may undervalue games from big and small teams alike. Deprofessionalization is built on the back of devaluing labor. This seems like an intentionally gaslighty argument. The labor is not like being devalued in that sense. If anything, these AAA companies have overvalued the labor and overhired. If y'all are getting outplayed by smaller teams, you can't just try and make people throw a pity party for you and being like, oh, the labor is getting devalued. Rigney offered some extra nuance on his deprofessionalization theory in an email exchange we had before PAX. He predicted that marketing roles at studios would be the first on the chopping block, followed by roles that seem replaceable to management, even if they're not. The winners will be the creative renegades. I'm talking about the people making work that would have never gotten greenlit at one of these bigger publishers in the first place. Some of these creatives will start their own studio or dabble in side projects. This is the only creative industry on the planet where one person can make $100 million making something by themselves. That held up in my survey of the games boothing at PAX. The developers of Mycopunk and Cat Secretary had some of the larger teams on the floor of about 5 to 6 people. Indie publisher Playism was showing off a number of excellent-looking games like Mind Driver and Break Arts 3. Executive producer Shunji Muzutani told me the average team size the company's looking to back is around 1 to 3 devs, though he said it's not a hard and fast rule. My favorite game I saw, We Are for Shadows, is being developed by The First Tree. Solo developer David Well explained that he's hiring a contract coder to help with the dense system design, fueling the farming part of his horror farming simulator. I think I've actually seen that game on Steam. It looked pretty sick, actually, if I'm remembering that one right. It's like one guy like on a farm, and you gotta like farm stuff, but at night some freaking creepy stuff happens. I think it's such a bad description, but whatever. The story was the same everywhere I went. Solo devs, 2-person teams, and publishers fishing for low-budget indie hits were the talk of the show. I want to be clear here. No one I spoke to at PAX East should feel obligated to give anyone a job. They're small teams making the most of limited resources, and it's the acceleration in game development technology that's made it possible. I take umbrage with that argument. This seems like disingenuous. Small teams have been doing a good job on various games for a long time. It's like a snug premise to be like, oh, these smaller teams are only succeeding because of acceleration in game development. No, they've been succeeding for a long time. And more to the point, as we've already been discussing, a lot of these AAA companies have just been losing goodwill from various players, various gamers, because of the decisions that y'all been making. But of course, these sort of people always want to try and dodge accountability and or blame gamers, or in this case, oh, it's technology. That's why indie games are succeeding and AAA isn't. They'll blame whatever they possibly can. Anything to not admit that it might actually be their fault on some of this stuff, or maybe even all of it, depending on what we're talking about specifically. Let's go back here really quick, though, and also talk about this. What feels wrong is how few people seem to benefit from this status quo. So because AAA is starting to receive losses, rightfully so, and some of these people are getting terminated. This is not fair. It's not fair that they're also not benefiting. Look, man, this is the correction, if anything, that a very corrupt industry is overdue for. Let's skip down to this section that I think you guys will find rather interesting. It says, as someone who recently shipped his second game as a writer, the cuts to game narrative teams hit close to home. The GDC 2025 State of the Industry survey reported that of the 11% of devs laid off in the last year, 19% of them worked in game narrative. This could be devastating news for certain DI narrative consultation companies that we're all familiar with, and others that we're not, because there are actually a lot of them, especially out in Montreal, Canada. The highest of any responding demographic. Two diverging trends are hurting this field. The growth of successful games that don't feature much narrative, either focusing on deep game mechanics or story-like multiplayer, and the spread of story-driven games authored by the creative director and maybe one or two collaborators create conditions that lower the number of available jobs. And we'll wrap it up there, actually. Those are the most interesting parts of that article, in my opinion. But let me know what you think about that stuff. As usual, these people are upset and trying to make excuses. That's the way I see it, at least. This whole thing about deprofessionalization, aka people are not buying AAA slop and these companies are losing money. And now they're trying to put some sort of term on it that, like I said earlier, also in my opinion, just comes off rather pompous. But let me know what you think in the comments. Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed my coverage, please also consider liking and or subscribing. Appreciate ya, and I'll see you in the next one.